In the dense tropical lowlands of Costa Rica, far from the monumental stone traditions of Egypt or Mesopotamia, there exists a quiet contradiction, one that does not announce itself with towering pyramids or vast temples, but instead with silence, symmetry, and stone. Perfect spheres, dozens of them, some small enough to cradle in one's hands, others weighing several tons, shaped with such precision that even modern observers hesitate before assigning them to a distant past. They rest in fields, along riverbanks, and deep within the earth, as if placed with intent, and then forgotten. We are told that ancient societies developed gradually, their tools improving over centuries, their craftsmanship limited by the materials and techniques available to them. And yet here, scattered across a remote landscape, are objects that seem to resist that narrative. Smooth, geometrically consistent, and often aligned in deliberate patterns, these spheres challenge not only our understanding of the people who made them, but the assumptions we carry about technological progress itself. And this is where the contradiction begins. What if these objects are not anomalies, but evidence? What if they reveal a level of precision and organization that we have not fully accounted for? What if the past was not as simple as we imagine? History does not break easily, but here it bends. The story of these spheres begins in the southern region of Costa Rica, in an area known as the Diquís Delta. This region, rich in fertile soil and dense vegetation, was once home to complex pre-Columbian societies, most notably the Diquís culture, which thrived between approximately 500 and 1500 CE. These communities left behind evidence of agriculture, metallurgy, and social hierarchy, but unlike the civilizations of Mesoamerica, they did not construct towering stone cities or inscribe their history in monumental architecture. Instead, their legacy is quieter, subtle, hidden. For centuries, the dense jungle concealed what lay beneath. The spheres remained buried, protected by layers of earth and time, their existence unknown to the outside world. There were no written records describing them, no oral traditions that clearly explained their purpose. And so, for generations, they remained undisturbed until the modern world arrived. In the 1930s, the landscape of the Diquís Delta began to change dramatically. The expansion of banana plantations, driven by companies such as the United Fruit Company, led to large-scale deforestation. Workers cleared vast areas of land, cutting through jungle that had stood untouched for centuries. It was during this process, as trees fell and soil was displaced, that something unexpected emerged. Stone. Not jagged or irregular, but curved, smooth, perfect. At first, they appeared as isolated anomalies, rounded boulders that seemed almost too regular to be natural. But as more land was cleared, more spheres were revealed. Some were partially buried, others fully exposed, resting on the surface as if placed there intentionally. Workers, uncertain of what they had found, began to move them, sometimes even using dynamite in misguided attempts to uncover hidden treasures believed to lie within. But there was nothing inside. No gold, no relics, no inscriptions, only stone. This is not myth. This is stone. As archaeologists were called to the site, the scale of the discovery became clearer. Dozens of spheres were documented, ranging in size from a few centimeters to over 2 meters in diameter. The largest weighed as much as 15 tons. Their shapes were remarkably consistent, with some exhibiting near-perfect spherical geometry, a level of precision that raised immediate questions. How were they made? And perhaps more importantly, why? The material itself provided the first clue. Most of the spheres were carved from granodiorite, a hard, igneous rock similar to granite, known for its durability and resistance to erosion. This was not a material that could be easily shaped with primitive tools. It required time, effort, and a clear understanding of form. Archaeologists believe that the stones were quarried from nearby sources, particularly the foothills of the Talamanca Mountains, located several kilometers from where many of the spheres were found. Transporting these massive objects across uneven terrain would have required coordination and labor on a significant scale. There is no evidence of wheeled transport in the region at the time, suggesting that the spheres were likely moved using logs, ropes, and human effort. But here is the unsettling part. Even if we accept that these societies had the means to transport such stones, the question of shaping them remains. The process likely involved pecking the surface with harder stones, followed by grinding and polishing to achieve the final form. Experimental archaeology has shown that such techniques can produce smooth surfaces over time, but achieving near-perfect symmetry on such a scale would require not only patience, but a consistent method of measurement. And there is no evidence of measuring tools. No rulers, no compasses, no written guides, only the spheres themselves. Some researchers have noted that certain spheres were arranged in patterns, lines, triangles, and even alignments that suggest an awareness of spatial organization. At sites like Finca 6, several spheres were found in situ, meaning they had not been moved from their original positions. These arrangements have led to speculation about their function, with some suggesting they may have marked ceremonial spaces, indicated social status, or even aligned with celestial events. But the evidence remains inconclusive. There are no inscriptions on the spheres, no carvings, no symbols. They do not speak. And so, interpretation becomes a matter of careful inference. The mainstream archaeological view holds that the spheres were created by the Diquís culture as part of their social and ceremonial practices. Their size and placement may have reflected the status of individuals or communities, serving as markers of power or identity. The effort required to produce and position them would have conveyed prestige, reinforcing social hierarchies within the. This explanation is grounded in known patterns of human behavior. Across the world, societies have used monumental objects to express authority, belief, and identity. In this sense, the spheres are not unique. They are part of a broader human tendency to shape the environment in meaningful ways. And yet, something remains unresolved. The precision, the uniformity, the silence. Alternative interpretations have emerged over time, though they remain speculative. Some researchers have explored the possibility that the spheres had astronomical significance, perhaps aligning with solstices or other celestial events. Others have suggested that they may have served as navigational markers or boundary indicators, guiding movement through the landscape. These ideas are not without merit, but they are difficult to prove. The displacement of many spheres during early discovery has obscured their original context, making it challenging to reconstruct their intended arrangements. Without clear patterns or supporting evidence, such interpretations remain possibilities rather than conclusions. And this is where the tension persists. We are left with objects that are undeniably real, undeniably crafted, and yet not fully understood. They do not fit neatly into our expectations. They resist simple explanation. History does not break easily, but here it bends. In recent years, efforts have been made to preserve and study the remaining spheres. Several sites have been designated as protected areas, and in 2014, the stone spheres of the Diquís were recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, acknowledging their cultural and historical significance. This designation has brought renewed attention to the spheres, encouraging further research and conservation. But recognition does not equal understanding. Even now, decades after their discovery, the spheres continue to provoke questions. Not because they are impossible, but because they are incomplete. They offer just enough information to suggest complexity, but not enough to define it. And perhaps that is their true significance. They remind us that the past is not a fixed narrative, but a landscape of fragments, pieces of a larger story that we are still trying to assemble. They challenge the assumption that technological sophistication follows a single linear path. They suggest that knowledge can exist without leaving behind the tools that created it. This is not myth. This is stone, and stone endures. As we stand before these spheres, whether in a museum or in the quiet fields where they were first uncovered, we are confronted not with answers, but with presence. They do not explain themselves. They do not reveal their purpose. They simply exist, perfect, silent, unyielding. And in that silence, there is a question, not of how they were made or even why, but of what they represent. A reminder that history is not always as transparent as we believe. That beneath the surface of accepted knowledge, there are still uncertainties waiting to be explored. The spheres of Costa Rica do not demand belief. They do not insist on mystery. They offer something more subtle, a pause, a moment of reflection, and a quiet acknowledgement that even in a world shaped by evidence and reason, there are still places where certainty fades and curiosity begins.